Hello again and welcome to the Memoir channel. And today I'm going to be chatting with Don Hughes about his memoir, The Mutt for Me. And his tagline is a beautiful transformation from project dog to man's best friend. I'm thinking this is going to be about a rescue dog and who rescued who. So this book is also a 2023 Nonfiction Book Awards gold medalist and is an Amazon bestseller. So let's find out from Don how he did that. All right, so hi Don, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are things in Portugal?
You know what? They're pretty damn good. So so I'm just going to start. Let's just jump straight in and I'm going to ask the
Okay.
question I always start with is why did you write this memoir? Well, what made you want to write this story?
Well, I hadn't really planned on writing a memoir. That was never life goal or career goal. When I volunteered at the Maricopa County Animal Care and Control Shelter, I started writing an email when I would get back to my friend Jenny, who introduced me to the world of animal rescue and euthanasia lists and animal abuse and so forth,
Mm-hmm.
about all the things that would happen during the day, during my shift out there. And I was volunteering as a adoption counselor,
Wow.
which means that I was working with the public when they would come in looking for a dog or cat. I was one of the few volunteers that would do both dogs and
Mm-hmm.
cats,
Mm-hmm.
um, to find their special new best friend forever.
So making sure it was a good match.
Yes,
Yeah.
making sure it was a good match. Sometimes they had been on the website and they knew what they were looking for. Other
Mm-hmm.
times it was, we've never been here before, but we want to adopt a dog or a pet or a cat.
Yeah.
What do we do?
Right. So,
And so at the West Shelter is the newest of the two shelters that the county had and the largest. And they had at West probably 300 or more dogs,
wow.
um, and 20 to 30 cats at any one time. And I'd never been there before I started volunteering. And every
Mm-hmm.
time I went in, I would see at least five dogs
Yeah.
that I wanted to take home.
That's difficult, isn't it?
You know, and that would be just in the first building.
Right.
Uh,
So
um,
so then you would do your shift and you would email everything to Jenny.
yes, I would, sometimes the stories were funny because,
Uh-huh.
you start with dogs and cats and the general public, and you just never know what you're going to get. And sometimes they're very funny stories, and we had
Yeah.
a lot of fun. And sometimes they were more heartbreaking.
Right.
And I always said that volunteering at the shelter was the most rewarding and most heartbreaking thing I've ever done in my life.
Mm-hmm. I can totally see that. I can
Yeah.
understand that.
It would make me question my faith in humanity
Oof.
and
Yeah.
then restore it often in the same day.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you see the worst and the best, don't you? Yeah.
Yes, you
Yeah.
absolutely do. And the general public is generally funny. They're not intentionally so, but uh, we would
Well,
have we would have funny people that would, or funny things would happen.
I mean, and I think it's a good way to approach it with a more lighthearted, approach probably helps you to get through it easier when you're seeing stuff.
It did, and it certainly balanced out some of the more heartbreaking stories.
Mm,
And
mm.
uh, every dog in there, every cat had a hard luck story of some
Sure,
kind.
sure.
Otherwise, they wouldn't be there.
Right.
Um, but before I started, I really questioned whether I had the time to do it. And it's like, oh my God, this is going to take up so much time. And I had all of these excuses as to why not to do it.
Wait,
We're,
are you talking about writing the memoir or adopting the dog?
both.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
volunteering, yes. I went through this long process of, do I want to do this? And,
Yeah, it's a big
research
decision.
and analyze and think about it. And do I have the time? I travel for work, blah, 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 blah. And they're just excuses.
Hmm.
Um, and the county required 8 hours a month. And when you think about it, that's 2 hours on the weekend.
Yeah,
I'm not that
right.
busy.
Yeah, it's
So
manageable.
eventually it became my happy place. And I just love going there. And I would usually plan on staying 2 or 3 hours on a Saturday or Sunday. And um, it would get to be the point where I was getting close to the end of, when I had planned on going home, but there were still people in the waiting area. And I thought, well, I'll do one more
Hmm.
and then one
One more.
more. And then the next thing you know, it's 5 o'clock and they're closing.
Right.
And, I'm exhausted, happy, exhausted, but
Yeah.
still exhausted.
But it's lovely when you find something that you actually want to stay longer for.
Yes.
It's pretty special.
So the emails to Jenny became a weekly thing.
Hmm.
And she shared them with her mom. Jenny and I had dated at one point, and then when that didn't work out, we've become very close friends. And her mother loved the stories, and
Hmm.
Jenny kept pushing me. Really, just she kept nagging me to do something with the stories. That I was such a good writer, and I should do something with the stories. So. Um, After I adopted Barbie, the emails continued more about Barbie and the ups and downs, particularly the downs that we were having.
Hmm.
And so I had all of the emails, so I cut and pasted them into a Word document and structured a story around the emails.
Ah,
Because if you just cut and paste a bunch of emails into a Word document, that's not a book.
no.
You have to tell a story,
Yeah,
overall arching story.
of course.
And I gave it to her for Christmas, and she loved it. She gave it to her mom, who loved it. I gave it to my mom, who loved it, which I kind of discounted because, she's my
She has
mom.
to love it.
She has to love it. It
Right.
doesn't matter how old you are, she has to love it.
Yeah.
And I worked on it some more, and my niece is a tenured professor at Colorado State University. So
Mhm.
she's published. So she's the only one in the family that's published anything.
Okay.
So I shared it with her and I said, Shannon, give me your honest opinion. And she came back and she loved it. And she thought I really
Mm.
had something here. And so I kept working on it over the summer and revising it, adding additional stories and different things and adventures with Barbie and some of the hard times because Barbie was frankly a mess when I got her.
Oh, well,
Uh,
let's talk about Barbie a little bit.
yeah.
But
Um,
but so eventually you finished it, this
I
memoir.
finished it and then I had to do something with it, of which I had no idea what to do.
Right. So how did you
This,
publish? Did you publish? Did you get a
well,
publisher?
I saw there was something posted on Facebook from
Uh-huh.
a publisher, and I clicked on that. And then once you click on something on Facebook, the algorithm simply
It knows.
floods you
Yes.
with more similar ads.
Right.
And I read comments from people that on the Facebook post, and so many of them were negative.
Hmm.
They had gone with a publisher and had been ripped off and
Right.
treated badly and wasted all of their money. And it almost scared me off from doing anything, frankly, because I had no
Hmm.
idea what I was doing.
Hmm.
And finally, I ran across an ad from Greenleaf Publishing,
Hmm.
and all of these companies had slick websites.
Yeah.
touting their services and how great
Right.
they are.
Yeah.
And Greenleaf was fairly straightforward on pretty transparent as to what the different options were from traditional publishing to self publishing. And they offered a hybrid approach
Okay.
where you just pay them, you know, a sum and then they handle the editorial process. They handle printing,
Right.
distribution, and it, and all of those kinds of things.
Hmm.
And when you don't know what you don't know, it can be very overwhelming.
Yeah. No, actually, I think hybrid publishing seems quite popular at the moment, and it seems to work pretty well for everyone that's used it has had a positive experience as far as I can tell. So,
And they had a line in their website. We love talking to publishers.
mhm,
Give us a call. And at some point, at least for me, I have to talk to a real live person at
right.
some point because you can't ask questions of a website.
No. Yeah, it's
So
more
I thought,
reassuring, absolutely.
yeah. And so they said, we love talking to authors. So I cold called them.
Great.
And uh, the
And
receptionist passed me on to one of their sales reps or customer service reps who was very nice and she was very
yeah,
patient. And we spent 30 minutes on the phone together on a cold call. And I kept looking. And one of the things I liked about them is they don't accept every manuscript that
sure.
gets submitted, which separates them from the vanity publishers.
Right.
And, I stumbled into a website that rated the different publishing companies. And Greenleaf's was rated pricey but worth it.
All right.
So,
Can I just say that I saw that you had won this 2023 Nonfiction Book Awards. You were a gold medalist, so they must have been worth it because you got attention enough to get that,
yes,
right?
yes, it was wonderful.
And
And
it says you're an Amazon bestseller, which is fantastic. So at some point you must
yeah,
have hit a little spike somewhere that said yes.
yeah. So, I submitted it. I didn't really expect them to say yes.
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks later, I got an email early in the morning, and I decided I was going to take Barbie for our walk and then deal with the email when I got
Yeah.
back. And I was stunned when they said, the team has looked at your manuscript and we'd like to set up a meeting to talk to you about it.
Oh, wonderful.
I
And
thought, oh my God, now what do I do? So I called and set up the meeting, and
yeah.
we did, very nice, very good, productive conversation. And he asked, "Well, Don, what's your plan?" And I said, "I have to be honest, I don't have one. I didn't expect to get this far."
Right, right.
So he said, "Well, okay, no problem. This is what we do." He
Hmm.
said, "We'll do a deep dive on your manuscript and come back with some suggestions and with a proposal, and we'll go from there."
Hmm.
And they did. And the deep dive came back and said that it was all telling and no showing. And I
Hmm.
had no idea what they were talking about
Right.
because I had written for work, but I'd never written a book.
Hmm. Yeah.
And they gave some examples, and I thought, oh, okay, that makes sense. And I said yes. They said yes, and they assigned me a developmental editor, and we refocused the manuscript from just a series of emails to more focused on Barbie and
Hmm.
the journey with Barbie
Wow.
and how I helped her. And my father had died 9 months before I had adopted Barbie. So she was as helpful to me in
Right.
dealing with grief and how I dealt with my dad's passing
Yeah.
as I was to her. And we had structured the book around the premise of who saved who.
Right.
And as the editor pointed out, Don, you mentioned your dad's passing, but you don't really talk about it and how it had affected you.
Hmm.
So the reader can't answer that question if you don't tell them. if you
Yeah.
don't show them how you were affected.
Yeah.
And so that required a lot of going deeper than I'm
And
accustomed to
was
doing.
that uncomfortable for you, or were you happy to do it?
It was a little both. I was a
Yeah.
little uncomfortable about it, but there were a lot of happy memories that I was able to weave back into the
Mm-hmm.
story, and then talk about how his passing did affect me. And I had a job where basically I was required to be an effective communicator.
Mm-hmm.
And after his passing, I got much more quiet, a little withdrawn, and easily irritable.
Mm.
It's not what makes an effective communicator.
Right. Yeah.
And I would get emotional at watching, movies or TV shows that got to an emotional scene or
Yeah.
something. And
So
so I was,
you needed to process all of that grief, and you needed a way to get it
yes,
out of your system. Yeah,
yes,
absolutely. So you know what? Writing is a fantastic way to do that. So that probably helped, and then having Barbie helped as well. So that's kind of a
yeah,
win-win, you know?
it certainly was. And yes, she helped me as much as I helped her.
Yeah.
And
Okay, so I know Barbie's sitting next to you, but can you show her to us again? Because we get to see Barbie.
see,
Oh, hi,
she's,
Barbie. And how long have you had her?
I have had her, it'll be 5 years in March.
Oh, so a long time. And okay, I
A
know
lot,
that in the beginning there was behavioral, I can't even say it, behavioral difficulties with Barbie, and
that's to put it mildly.
you had to sort of get her in get her in check, or whatever the words would be there. So can you tell us an example or something about that?
She was afraid of everything,
Uh,
literally everything, including men.
mm-hmm,
And when I first met her, um, she was shaking. She was hiding in the furthest back corner of her kennel at the shelter, hoping
mm-hmm,
nobody would notice.
mm-hmm.
Um, and I had to go into her kennel, crawl through a smaller door, past the dog poop, and to get my leash on her.
Yeah,
And most of the dogs, when you at the shelter, when you take them out of their kennel, they're just ready to go.
yeah.
They just
Freedom.
want
Yeah,
freedom and
yeah.
you know pull your arm out of your socket. Not Barbie. She was okay with getting out of her kennel, and she walked okay on the leash. There was no interaction between the two of us at all. And it was obvious she would allow me to touch her, but she didn't like it. She
Mm-hmm,
would tolerate.
mm-hmm,
And it was like a first date that went okay, but not terribly well.
mm-hmm,
But I went back a second time. We did a longer walk, more time in one of the rooms where it was just the two of us, and still no interaction, no recognition.
mm-hmm.
There were all kinds of red flags, um, saying, "Don't do this."
Yeah.
But I brought her home for a day visit to see how she would do at the house and walking around the neighborhood. And she did pretty well. There at least were no new red flags, but I agonized over this decision.
Mm-hmm.
What do I do with her when I travel?
Right.
What if I
And
do I know enough?
yeah.
And several long conversations with Jenny, and she said, You know more than you think you do." And the original plan was I had a business trip coming up that I would spend more time with Barbie, both in and out of the shelter. And after the business trip, I didn't have another trip for 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
Then I would make a decision. And if I brought her home then I would have 2 months to get acclimated to each other.
Right.
And as they say, man plans, God laughs. And I told them that if they could find a foster or a rescue to take her or someone to adopt her, that would be
To
fine.
go ahead. Yeah. Okay.
But if not, before they euthanized her to call me. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I got the call.
Mm-hmm.
She was scheduled to be euthanized. I got the call on Thursday. She was scheduled to be euthanized on Monday. She
Mm.
continued to deteriorate in the shelter. So now it's put up or shut up time. There's no
Yeah.
time for agonizing.
Yeah.
And, professionally, I'm very decisive. I've made big decisions affecting tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people without
Mm-hmm.
blinking an eye. But this was different. And this time, this was a life and death decision. I
Yeah.
knew what was going to happen if I said no.
Yeah.
And long conversation with Jenny and with another friend who volunteered there. And I decided I could not let her die. Sometimes you just have to take a leap of faith and hope it all works out.
I'm so glad you did.
Me too.
I'm sure Barbie is too.
She is too. And
Yeah.
I did the paperwork and everything on Saturday. Sunday, I went and picked her up, and she had really deteriorated badly. She would no
Yeah.
longer walk on the leash. She wouldn't get in the car.
So she was basically shutting down, completely
Yeah,
shutting
she was
down.
shutting.
Yeah.
She had given up,
Yeah.
and so our first day was the best way to put this awful.
So I mean,
Um,
you were with her obviously the whole time?
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
And she was
she
just
was so afraid.
unresponsive and
Yeah, she was
mm,
unresponsive. She was terrified because going from the shelter, at least the shelter is a
right.
known
Right. It's a
environment,
whole new environment again now.
a
Yeah.
whole new environment.
Yeah.
It's as I would tell potential doctors, it's your house. It's not the dog's house
Right.
yet.
Yeah.
And she was just completely terrified,
Oh,
and
poor
she didn't
thing.
want to move in the house. And for some reason, I thought it'd be a good idea to take her outside, which turned out to be just completely
Oh,
awful
yeah.
because she was just afraid outside.
Yeah.
She was so scared she would start to fall asleep standing up.
Wow. So that's just she's exhausted from being so anxious, I guess.
Yes.
Burning her
And
energy up just being terrified. Oh, poor little
so,
thing.
she needed someone to believe in her enough to try.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided it was going to be me, whether she knew it or not. So I decided that, structure was going to be a part of how we would bond in food,
Mm-hmm.
treats, and walks. That
Mm-hmm.
we would get up at the same time every day. We'd take a walk every day at the same time, feed her at the same time, take the same walk. Um, and this was a very long and slow process.
Yeah, but that was
But
smart of you because it's a routine is comforting, right? Because I know what's coming
yes,
next and I know what's coming next and I slowly start to trust that it's going to be okay. Yeah.
and it was a
So,
very slow process. And every time on our walk, she would stop, I would run my hand on her back so she would get used to my touch.
mhm.
Um, House training was a total disaster
Shame. Yeah. And
because
you can't yell at her.
she had
Yeah.
been picked up as a stray.
Hmm.
So when you're on the street, it doesn't matter where you
Sure.
go.
Sure.
And 3 months in the shelter, again, it didn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now she they didn't think she'd ever been inside a house before. And she just
Yeah.
didn't know
Yeah.
what to
How,
do.
how old was she when you adopted her? Do you know?
Based on her teeth, they thought she was 3 or 4.
So I mean,
So she
that's
had
three or
been
four
somebody's
years
dog.
of, you think she had been a pet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most likely abused.
Yeah. Oh, poor thing.
Yeah. Because
Wow.
very afraid of men and
Hmm.
uh, moving cars, parked cars, garage doors going up and down.
Mm.
Um, any strange new sound, and they were all new to her.
Right.
She was terrified.
So how long before she started to respond to you and be okay with you?
About 6 weeks before I had the first sense that
Oh.
she kind of liked being touched,
Mm-hmm.
and being touched behind, your ear here
Mm-hmm.
feels kind of good.
Hmm.
The first little tail wag at the door in the morning on our walk was the first real sign um, that she was starting to
And
relax.
and how did you feel the first time you saw her give a tail wag?
Oh my God. You know, you're just over the
Yeah.
moon.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, that's so lovely. Yeah, I can
yeah,
imagine that's very validating for you and just like, yeah, it's a triumph. It is. Well done.
yeah. I
Because
mean,
you,
every now and then we would be on our walk, and she would look up at me with that, "Hey, Dad, this is fun. Where are we going? Can we?
yeah,
How am I doing? Can we keep going? I like doing this."
yeah, that's so
That
lovely.
was what made up for all of the midnight accidents
Right.
and other
So,
problems
so the
that we had.
difficulties was that she was so scared and she was never aggressive. She was never biting anybody. None of that kind of behavior.
No, not at first.
Uh-oh.
It, she That first surfaced when I brought a trainer into the house.
Ah.
Um, and Barbie was very protective of the house
Mm-hmm.
and was very kind of aggressive towards Debbie at the time, and so that was a problem.
Mm.
Um, and it really became a problem when that business trip at the end of the month came up.
Mm-hmm.
I had to do something. And I had tried going on one of the websites where you can find a dog walker or dog sitter,
Right.
and interviewed a number of people, and that did not work out. And PetSmart, which is one of the big retail
Mm-hmm.
stores in the States, um, some of their stores have boarding. So I called them, and she asked some questions, and they basically said no with her behavior problems. No.
Yeah.
But they recommended Deer Creek Animal Hospital, which was not far from the house, and that they kind of specialize in problem dogs.
Oh.
And immediately called them, and they said, "Yeah, we can probably take her. Do you want to come out for take a tour?" And I said, I can be there in, like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Ran out there. It's a full vet practice, grooming, daycare, overnight boarding, spotless, very professional. The guy took me around, and we talked about Barbie, and he said, "Yeah, no problem. Yeah, just, bring her."
Yeah.
And so I was going on Friday. So that morning, I'm a wreck. It's worse than taking your child to the first day of school.
Right. Well, I mean, if
And
you,
I had to keep reminding myself that I was not taking her back to the shelter.
yeah.
I was taking her to Deer Creek, and I'm coming back to get her.
Right. Yeah,
But
but
I
she
was a
doesn't
wreck.
know. Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah, I mean,
hard.
she doesn't
Yeah,
know,
that's
and
very hard.
it's just going to ruin everything.
That was
And
unfortunate timing, yeah, for the trip.
yeah, um, and so she was a little aggressive and barking when we got there. And they said, "Okay, we're just going to take her through this back hallway, and you know, they said, we're going to leave her in this one outside,
Hmm.
yard, penned in yard, and let her relax a little bit, and then we'll bring her into the play yard and her and into her kennel, and They send me pictures while I was
Oh, that's
gone,
very nice.
and when I went to pick her up, there was just a slight tail wag,
Ah,
which I took
so
as a good sign.
that is a good sign. But
Yeah. So,
um, so listen, I'm just seeing that we're already down to the last 10 minutes here. So what I want to ask you is there a part of your book you would like to read for us? Do you have like a little short passage or one of your favorite parts or
um, I think I'll read. I'm sorry.
it's okay.
Zoom is trying to have me install an update. Um, I'll just read from the first chapter from when I meet Barbie for the first time.
Perfect. All right.
Okay. As I entered the Maricopa County Animal Care and Control West Shelter, I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. Strange, I thought, noticing the emotions. I'd walked through these blue double doors hundreds of times in the past 3 years as a weekend volunteer, but today was different. Today I wasn't reporting for duty. I'd seen a lot of scared dogs and cats at the shelter. Almost every dog had its own hard luck story, from abused dogs to the ones surrendered by their owner. I'd seen countless videos on social media of abused and scared dogs. I should have become hardened to these sad cases, but instead, these stories were motivation for me to keep coming back, to do what I could to help. Barbie's story, in so many ways, was no different than the others. I thought maybe I could work with her as I had other project dogs to become adoptable or help find the right family for her. Still, everything felt different for some reason. Maybe it was her sad eyes. As I continued walking past the reception area, I reminded myself I traveled too much to have a dog. A few nights earlier, Andrea, another volunteer friend, had posted a video of Barbie on Facebook. I first noticed her tawny color, black muzzle, and four white socks. Her tail curled up with a white tip, like it had been dipped in vanilla ice cream, and her head was topped by big black tipped ears that would occasionally fold in half. In the video, she was visibly shaking. I could see the fear in her eyes, even though she never looked directly into the camera. She appeared skinny and slightly malnourished. From my experience, I knew the stress of being in the shelter was likely causing her metabolism rate to increase, which led to weight loss despite being fed twice each day. She's so scared and sad, I thought as I watched it. I have to meet her. Hey, Don, what are you doing here? Asked Marcia, my friend and fellow volunteer. It was a Monday, and she was surprised to see me. Hi, Marcia, I said with a smile. I came in to see Barbie. Do you know anything about her? Yes, she's been one of our project dogs, and she isn't doing well at all. I knew this, of course, that's why I was there. Project dogs are those with behavioral issues that are difficult to correct, therefore making them unlikely to get adopted. And when dogs don't get adopted and their behavior deteriorates at a public shelter like Maricopa, they're scheduled to be put down. Euthanasia is one of the most hotly debated issues within the animal rescue community, with strong opinions on all sides and no easy answer. As the dog's behavioral health worsens in the kennel, can that dog be saved? Given the limited resources available, should the county spend the time and expense to save the dog?
Thank you. That's a good amount, I think, but thank you very much. Um, I mean, so first of all, I want to say I think it's a lovely present that you made for Jenny that you actually started this memoir as a Christmas gift for her. I think that's pretty fantastic too. So Jenny must be a very special person too.
She is.
Yeah. And I mean, I just think it's really lovely what you've done for Barbie, and I'm sure everyone that listens and reads your book has that exact same thought. And just wish there were more people like you that would do that so that no dog has to be euthanized and no cat has to be euthanized. And yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
yeah,
There are a lot of dedicated volunteers, and
yes,
I
I'm
think
sure.
one of the reasons that I wrote the book and published it was hopefully to inspire other people to go volunteer, to
Yeah,
go adopt a dog rather than going to a pet store or a backyard breeder.
Yeah,
and not to
fantastic.
overlook the behaviorally challenged dogs.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
there was a great dog inside Barbie just waiting to come out.
Oh, that's lovely. There was a, yeah, I like that you say that. Yeah. Oh, and now that dog is out. So yay. Well,
Yay.
yeah. So okay, so the book is out there, and people can reach you at your website. They can get it on Amazon, and all, I'm going to put all the information here.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for talking with me today,
Thank you.
and all the
And
best of
Portugal
luck.
was one of my favorite vacations.
It's fantastic here.
It is. I need to go back.